Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I think this is the last session for today, so I hope your energy levels are still high for what promises to be an interesting session where we're going to be looking at the regional workshops. We're going to be talking about some of the results that come from those workshops, and we're also going to hear from what we are calling the mirroring regions. In other words, three regions, speakers from three regions who weren't involved in the workshops, but whose views will allow us to broaden out the perspective of the Charter project. I've been given very strict timings from Astrid. I've already blown it. You were late back. I was told that my part of it would be exactly 3 minutes. It may interest you to know that in 3 minutes, the Earth travels 5,359.6 kilometres. So we've all done a very interesting and much longer journey than you would care to imagine already. So I have a very easy job after that, and that is because of the nature of the session. I hand over to Astrid, who has been one of the leading actors in Work Package 4, and she's going to really drive the session along, and then I'll come in towards the end to chair a group discussion, and then maybe we'll open it out to the floor after that. So Astrid, thank you.
Thank you, Conor. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. On behalf of the 6 charter regions, which are the Basque country, the Sibiu county, the Free Hanseatic state of Bremen, the Alentejo region, the Tuscany region, and Västra Götaland region, and ERRIN, the European Regions Research and Innovation Network, I'd like to thank the Irish hosting team for this wonderful opportunity to share with you the results of the learnings of the 6 regional case studies that we have conducted in the Charter project. And we have heard so many interesting initiatives from the Irish guests and stakeholders this morning, so it will really be interesting to give you an insight in what we have been doing the past few years. And I can say that it has been a really exciting journey and intense work of 6 regions and entire teams behind those regions. They have made these regional case studies possible. They have provided Charter with invaluable ground-level insights to cultural heritage sector integrated dynamics, as we call it. And specifically, we have learned about education and training gaps and needs in 6 regional cultural heritage ecosystems. The localized focus helped to anchor Charter's investigation in a real-life context, which is very, very important. And before taking you with us in this exciting journey, I would sincerely like to thank all the colleagues from the regions, those who are attending here in person, those who are with us today online, and all the other people back home for their relentless efforts, their high motivation, and also for being the best possible guides for us to learn about the cultural heritage in their regions. It has been really a pleasure, and it has made our tasks easier in this project, and it was a pleasure working with believers of cultural heritage values and driving this precious work to preserve it for future generations. I want to share with you, before giving the floor to each region who will present themselves, a bit of the general introduction about what this work was. And starting by that, it's important to mention that Charter is actually the first European Blueprint project that was pioneering with having, say, 6 regions on board. And this is important because at the end of this project, we will deliver a European strategy for which we need endorsement of member states and regions to get it implemented on the ground. So this place-based perspective was very important. We used a bottom-up approach. We talked to multiple stakeholders in the sector, in neighboring sectors. And last but not least, in this work of more than 2 years, we managed to reach out to more than 306 unique cultural heritage stakeholders, and in total almost 470 participants in these workshops. The objectives were triple. First of all, we wanted to see how can we develop a model for analysis if other regions want to do the same work after this project, how can we help them? We looked into the ecosystem. How does it work in a region? Who are the stakeholders involved? How is the collaboration dynamics? And last but not least, we also used these very wise and experienced regional stakeholders to provide us with suggestions on how can we make this European Cultural Heritage Skills Alliance landing in the regions after the project. So we talk about cultural heritage ecosystems, and it was already mentioned by several stakeholders from the Irish side this morning. So we are talking about communities that are able to adapt to the environment that they are facing. They interact, they perform different tasks, and they evolve. So it's about bringing together all these different kind of stakeholder profiles that are important to preserve heritage for future generation. And of course, this ecosystem approach is very important when you bring it down to a region, to cities, where you can actually still have the possibility to see how is it working. So this is how we started this charter process. So we designed, first of all, involving the partners regions, but also the partners from the consortium into a methodology. How are we gonna do these case studies? Then we developed a format to run regional workshops. So we have the opportunity to go for 2 days in each region, really to talk and exchange with the regional stakeholders. We've done 6 of these regional workshops. Of course, we made reports about them. We actually are about to finish the integrated report on what do we learn, what are the commonalities, what are the differences between the regions. And today we are here to present you the learnings, to also propose some suggestions that we have in mind. And last but not least, we will like to ask the Irish stakeholders, but also 3 guests that we invited from other regions from Europe to reflect upon what we have found and also to feed back to us in terms of possible solution. When it comes to the methods that we've used many. So before going to the regions, we did a very deep ex-ante analysis of each regional ecosystem, the stakeholders and the dynamics, desk research, surveys, bilateral, multilateral consultations, meetings. And all this information was captured in 6 booklets, which will be available on the website as from January, so you can have the opportunity to read it. Then, of course, we conducted the regional workshops, 2 days of intense exchanges with stakeholders, with presentations, with panel discussions, with audience surveys, with workshops, and with observations of practitioners in their workplace. And then all this work resulted in 6 reports. And then this last report, which is on its way, it will give you an insight in the overall learnings. So this is a huge amount of work that we have done for the past 3 years, which is, to be honest, impossible to squeeze into 2 hours for you, especially in the last time slot of an already very interesting but intense day. But we will tease you a bit and share the essentials, and then we really hope that we have the opportunity afterwards to exchange more. So here you see the timeline, how we traveled from one region to the other. And now I would like to invite the colleagues from the regions to the stage to present very, very shortly in an impossible mission in 7 minutes what their region is about. And then after that, we will conclude with the commonalities and the differences, but most important, some suggestion on what we can do next. So Ainhoa from the Basque government, I would like to ask you to join me. Ah, there you are. You're so blue that I didn't spot you. Sorry for that. Ainhoa Bernabe from the Basque government, from the cultural department. The floor is yours.
Hi. Thank you. Thank you, Astrid. Yeah?
So you can push on the green button.
Okay.
Yeah, and then you see it here.
Oh, okay, perfect. So, good afternoon to everyone. There we are in that small corner between Spain and France. The Basque government is composed of 3 provinces of historical territories with their own public institutions and a common public institution that is the Basque government. The Basque government has broad competencies such as education, tax collection, public services, culture, and a strong level of autonomy from the Spanish central government. As you can see, we also participate in a wide network of cultural projects in Europe that are represented. Sorry. Yeah. So the Basque country is a small territory in size, but very rich in terms of cultural heritage, and public management there, protection and dissemination of Basque cultural heritage is divided between the Basque government, the provincial councils, and the municipalities. And the corresponding competences are described in the Basque Cultural Heritage Bill approved in May 2019. The Basque government has powers in management and conservation of cultural heritage in terms of classification, protection policies, and financing, but also in dissemination and participating in national or international networks. The provincial councils instead have powers over conservation and restoration interventions of classified or protected cultural heritage. And it's up to municipalities to draft and manage urban catalogues, authorize intervention in monumental complexes, and take prevention measures and promote the dissemination of their cultural heritage. So all these institutions care for a vast number of heritage assets, including tangible and intangible, and assets of international recognition, such as the Vizcaya Bridge or the Paleolithical paintings in the caves of the Cantabrian coast. So we cover everything from archaeological, paleontological, or historical sites to maritime or industrial heritage, but also movable goods, traditional practices, Basque language, and so on. But there is no legal recognition of the professional profiles in the cultural heritage field, and we believe there is a need for it. The Basque Cultural Heritage Bill guarantees the conservation of cultural heritage, but it does not describe the professional skills or the professional profile in charge of this task. In terms of a labor market, the one related to cultural heritage protection can be both private or public orientated, depending on the ownership of the asset and the institutional competencies. In the case of the public institution, it is the Civil Service Directorate, corresponding to the Governance Department, who decides on the qualification and the knowledge we need. But there is a need for major coordination because currently the public administration does not provide or does not facilitate the necessary specialization in heritage. In the other side, in the private sector, I will say that many heritage professionals in the Basque Country have serious difficulties to make a decent living from heritage, especially those related to the function of engagement and use. So the tendency is that many graduates in history, fine arts, art history, archaeology, sociology, etc., tend to go into other professional paths as education. So we have a great lack of qualified professionals in cultural heritage. professionals of dissemination, interpretation, or mediation are very much needed in the sector. But anyway, in our last workshop, we identified professionals who cover all the functions of charter, but we also find out that there is a lack of knowledge or collaboration between those agents. And it's something that the Basque government, together with the University of the Basque Country and the rest of the public institution there, with competencies in heritage, has already started to address. We will see the results. In terms of education and training, the formal education agents in the Basque Country are the Basque public and private universities, and the main educational providers teaching especially degrees in conservation, restoration of cultural heritage, as well as different degrees, master degrees, and doctoral programs related to cultural heritage preservation, interpretation, and dissemination. The Basque Country Public University trains conservators, restorers, historians, art historians, and other related professionals. But there is also a non-formal education net and a big offer of museum workshops, summer university, complementary courses, or workshops organized by craft and culture centers. When it comes to establish education and training challenges, needs, and gaps, there is still oh, sorry, I didn't pass the, sorry. There is still a lack of communication at different levels, both within university professional circles, among academia and professionals, and also between administration and professionals. This collaboration needs to be improved, with no doubt, and we need to build a stronger and more efficient collaboration networks and formulas. A big challenge is to offer a specialized training education opportunities to those already working in cultural heritage and that need new practical skills but have no time to commit to long and theoretical studies. Formal education and training is practically non-existent, and in craft careers, we struggle to maintain tradition regarding to metalworking, pottery, and other traditional craft making that are part of our cultural heritage. And even if this problem is already being faced in some areas, as in the boat carpentry and maritime heritage, this is something that it should be addressed in a more systematic and organized way. So, as Astrid said, our workshop in Bilbao was the first one in October 2021. That workshop proved the importance of a broad and inclusive understanding of cultural heritage. So, we think that there is still a narrow perception of what cultural heritage is. And we need to raise awareness in the need for professionals and roles that are not traditionally associated with cultural heritage. For example, the ones relating to new technologies. Thank you. I'm on time.
Thank you, Ainhoa, for this dense presentation. Then I would like to invite Ciprian Stefan to the floor. He is the director of Astra Museum in Romania and Sibiu country, and also advisor of the Romanian Minister of Culture. The floor is yours.
So hello everybody, thank you Astrid, thank you Andina, thank you Västra Golden Region, because I'm here, and also Astra Museum in Sibiu County is here to present what do we have in the region. You will already visit our region when you had the workshop, but now I need to press green, yes? We don't have too many cooperations with the other regions, just those regions from the map, official cooperations, because we have projects with other countries in Europe, but not an official commitment between the regions. In our region, it's about the cultural heritage. Why? Because it's a cultural landscape, very diverse. So then a lot of strategies on the county level struggle with cultural tourism, and also we've been a European capital of culture also, and we've been also European gastronomical capital. So then they start to invest in some roads in the rural areas, but nobody take care about the heritage. We still have in Romania, in all the rural areas, a lot of craftsmen, a lot of human resources that have skills, have competencies, but they don't have any paper to prove that. So in our museum, we start doing a center, Astra Center for Regional Resources, where we are available right now, start from this September, to certify the competencies of the craftsman. Doesn't matter which kind of craftsman is. Of course, he has to be in our database or researched by our colleagues. In Sibiu, for example, we have around 275 craftsmen. But, like I told you, they don't have any paper to prove their competencies. We still have a lot of money that are planted on the restorations field, but the companies doesn't have the proper personnel to work with it. So then, okay, we said we can help our authorities. How? Offer this database, but also certify those craftsmen. In this order, they can be very well contracted by the companies in the restoration field, but also to respect and to keep the cultural landscape of Sibiu in a proper way. When we talk about the municipalities, it's about Sibiu and Mediaș, and they are also involved in European project because they will receive an extra money on the next budget period for the heritage that they have in the cities. The same problem there in those cities, the companies doesn't have proper people and qualified people to work in the restorations field. And I'm not talking about the restorations of the objects. I mean, I'm talking about the restorations of the walls, of the bricks, of the wooden beams, and so on, where you don't need to have a school. Most of the craftsmen have around 4 classes or 6 classes or 8 classes. So they are not bachelor degrees or something like that. So, but these certifications will help them a lot, because then we will offer to the authorities this database. And when they will, when they will do the direct procurement or the public procurement, they will be allowed, according to the laws, to plant this database. In this way, the companies will be obliged to work with them, and we can assure a high quality of the restorations of the monuments. Besides these 2 sites, UNESCO sites, besides these 2 municipalities, we have 2 UNESCO sites. Very important for us is Biertan and Valea Viilor. Also there will be a lot of money invested by EU funds and also national funds for the restorations of the heritage. The same problem with the craftsmen. But we don't want to talk only about the people who work in the building preservations. Also, we talk about immaterial heritage, which is a lot in Sibiu and also in Romania. We have potters, we have coopers, we have textile makers, we have a lot of them. The same problem, no certifications for their skills. How can we put them in the market in order to sell the products? Because we have problems with the import from China. We have an UNESCO site, where is this woman, Horezu, is an UNESCO site. 80% of the pottery products that you will find in Horezu is imported from China, because they don't have any protections laws over there, and also the potters doesn't have any certifications that they are a potter. So those are the issues where we as a museum, and of course we have here also the National Institute of Heritage, will do our best to organize things in the proper and in the good directions, because we want to build roads for staying home. It's not just about the heritage, it's about also the rural communities from Romania and from Sibiu County. How can we offer them a chance to stay home and also to see, because their resources are available for them and they can build something for the future. And also in the next 30 or 40 years, I don't know, we want to see craftsmen, and maybe you want to see, when you come in Romania, craftsmen doing things in the open air museum or in the rural areas. To do that, we have to offer them a proper way to be assured that nobody can force them to renounce to the craftsmanship. I still have 1 minute. In Sibiu, we have a university, Lucian Blaga University, but they are dealing only with the objects, with the heritage objects, not with the buildings. But we don't need to have a college for the craftsman, for the carpenter, for the stonemaker, because we have these human resources in the countryside with a lot of skills. So they can be the provider for the next generations of craftsmen in heritage, and in this way we will have a future for our crafts. Thank you.
Thank you, Ciprian. Let me bring you to the next region. Claudia Harms, I invite you to the stage. She's the representative of the city of Bremerhaven, which is one of the 2 cities of the free Hanseatic state of Bremen in Germany. And she will take you on a journey into the Bremen ecosystem.
Thank you, Astrid. Yeah. Here you see Bremen and our associations and cooperations, and quite important for the Maritime Museum in Bremerhaven is the European Consortium for Ocean Research Drilling. Yes. Okay. So Bremen is a microregion with high cultural heritage density. The regional cultural heritage ecosystem shows medium sectoral dynamics rather low sector integrated dynamics with the tourism sector or urban planning. The whole set of cultural heritage types is present in the region. Nevertheless, a protection of the intangible heritage is not protected by the law. Main features are historic architecture, museums, galleries, historical sites, maritime heritage, music, performing arts, tradition, festivals, education and research, culinary heritage, and 2 UNESCO World Heritage Sites in Bremen, the Roland and the Town Hall. And very new, they are also a UNESCO site for literature. I just learned recently this year. Maritime culture is more located in Bremerhaven, not in Bremen. So just one step back, Bremerhaven are one federal state, the only federal state in in Germany consisting of 2 cities. And they are 60 kilometers apart. Bremen's the bigger one in the south, and Bremerhaven is in the north, the smaller one, and we are surrounded by another federal state. So this is quite unique, and this is why both cities are a little bit different. So Bremen is more about Hanseatic trade, and Bremerhaven is more about hands-on fish and chips and all this kind of maritime-related issues and themes. So maritime culture is one of the main factors for local identity and tourism in our region. But also here there's a lack of political prioritization for cultural heritage, which is not integrated in regional development strategies or also not in the research and innovation strategies for the specialization RIS3 of the Bremen region. But very important for Bremen and Bremerhaven is the Maritime Museum. The German Maritime Museum, it's a national museum, it's not a local museum, and it's located in the heart of Bremerhaven, actually where Bremerhaven was founded, at the very place. And this assumes multiple roles for the engagement and use, research, development and preservation and safeguarding and support for policy making. The DSM, the Deutsches Schifffahrtsmuseum, German Maritime Museum, establishes partnerships, fosters knowledge creation and sharing races, multidisciplinary and multi-territorial collaboration dynamics with stakeholders in and outside the region. It has the capacity to attract EU and other fundings for new conservation and restoration projects, which entails upskilling on jobs, and also a handful of highly motivated DSM staff members. They assume that the critical role of the ecosystem orchestrator. So sorry, this is not my text. Actually, I have to excuse myself a little bit. This is Lars' text, and Lars Kröger from the German Maritime Museum. He is sick, and so I'm kind of the substitute for him for this slide, at least. So sorry for me struggling a little bit. So, and a handful of The motivated staff I already mentioned, and while the Maritime Museum is very critical and it's very important for the ecosystem in Bremen and Bremerhaven, especially for the maritime cultural heritage. So, in Bremen in general, there's a significant lack of initial vocational education and higher educational programs focused on safeguarding craft techniques and traditional knowledge. There's no course in university on this, or no trainings for handcrafts, nothing. So the responsibility for preserving maritime cultural heritage largely falls on volunteers. There's no systematic assessment of skills gaps or a cultural heritage skills strategy in Bremen and Bremerhaven. Some of you were in Bremen and Bremerhaven at our regional conference and had the chance to talk to our stakeholders, and this is, I think, was one of the main findings and one of the main critiques that came up during the discussions there. So the shortage of skilled workers increases also the workload for the scarce experts who are there. They're limiting their time for professional development, for example. And partnerships for educating volunteers are also quite scarce, highlighting the urgent need to engage private companies in preservation efforts. And to address the aging workforce in the maritime sector, I think the volunteers are like 60-something on average years old. There's a call for more involvement from younger volunteers and private entities to ensure the community and the continuity of specialized crafts and objects. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia, for stepping in for Lars. This was indeed not so easy. So I'm now inviting Alexandra Correia to the floor. She is a representative of the Alentejo Regional Development Agency, and she will present you what we've learned in Alentejo.
So, hello everybody. I will present the Alentejo region. As you see in the slide, we are in the south of Portugal. We are a third part of the territory of Portugal, but we have a very low density of population. It's a very rural area. We have some cities, but most of the region is rural. And we have also a line of coasts. It's a region with many kilometers of coastline also. Alentejo region is very rich in cultural heritage and very diversity. We can find 2 UNESCO sites, and we also find 4 immaterial, intangible cultural heritage safeguard programs with the 4 different things. One of those is these kind of dolls that are made in ceramic, and the singing of Alentejo and the other things that are safeguarding programs by UNESCO. We have in the last years, also in the last period, and now in this period, we have in our smart specialization strategy, we have the focus on cultural and creative ecosystems. It's a new way of valorizing and putting the attention on the cultural heritage sector, but connected and articulated with other sectors in the region. It's based on the idea of cross-innovation, identity reinforcement, which allows the region's competitiveness to attract new residents and for the designing of new products and services. This is very important, and we today already spoke about that, the multidisciplinary approach and the link that should be made from the cultural heritage sector with other sectors in the region for the regional development. We think that we should shift to a more long-term strategy. There is a need to develop a systematic approach of skills gaps and needs assessment and investment in skills governance for the sector. What we find in the Alentejo region is that we were working a lot in short-term projects. We look by projects and not with a long-term vision and with a long-term strategy in this sector. And we miss it. We need to put attention and have a long-term strategy for the region in this sector. We also get the conclusion that retaining young people in the region with a region that is a very aging population, we are the most old population in the country, is very challenging. And this talent development trap is a major risk for skill supply for the region in general and for the cultural heritage in particular. We are already, as the regional agency, we are already in the focus group, in the core group that is working in the harnessing the talent platform at European level. So we think that is one of the most important things that we have to work on with other regions and with other people. Heritage literacy for policy and decision makers. Upskilling about the importance of both tangible and intangible cultural heritage for regional development. It's also something that is very important for us. It's the need that the ones that are deciding, the ones that have the power to decide the public policies should be more, they should have more knowledge, more literacy about the sector and about all the things that are being done. Another conclusion is that lifelong learning programs for cultural heritage and professionals are needed. We need much more of this in the region and much more offers of lifelong learning programs for all the people that are already working in the field. About traditional buildings, structure and materials, and conservation and restoration of ancient buildings is lacking in the architecture and engineer programs. So we found that all the curricula and the programs on these two kind of courses in the higher education is missing something about traditional buildings. They don't learn about it. And it should be very important to have it in that level of education. We need also more practice-oriented contacts with the world of professional cultural heritage, both in VET, in the vocational education and training, and also in higher education. We need to have more practice on in this kind of education offers. Transformational skills for cultural heritage professionals to address adequately change impacting the sector. We already talked about this today, and it's very important for us also to improve and to work on the digital transition, the green transition, and even in the new European Bauhaus. It's very important for the cultural heritage sector to look at it and develop offers and knowledge between these different sectors and these transitions. Applying at national level on regional cultural heritage thematic for certification. It's in Portugal. The training is at national level. Our region and all the regions in Portugal, only the islands are autonomous. The archipelago of Madeira and the Açores, they are autonomous regions. But in the continent, we have regions, but they are not autonomous. And in the field of education and training is centralized. So it's, and if you want to make a specific curriculum, specific courses for the region, you can apply for it. But normally we do it when you have the need, when you have if you have the people that wants to make a course, you have the need for jobs, you can do it. And you can apply it for the national level. And for doing that, we should have students, we should have people that are interested on it. Alentejo training courses plug holes in the labor market. It's connected with what I was saying. For example, if a tourism agency needs to train people to work in the specific thematic and on this cultural heritage, they can organize in practice and on working training courses to do that. Even at the same time. Okay, I'm just finishing. It's very important for the market to recognize the skills of each training course and their students. I think that we never know where is the egg or the chicken, who is first, because we need to have a very strong and good offers of employment. We should have a good activity on the sector of cultural heritage and a good offer of training. But who is first? And we have to work in all the three dimensions to improve it. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexandra from Alentejo. We jump from here to the east. So we have joining us online from Florence, Miriana Bucalossi from the Tuscany government, the educational department. So I will help you, Miriana, to switch to the slides. As long as you can give me an auditive cue, then we are ready to go.
Okay. Thank you, and good afternoon from Florence, from Tuscany. I think that you already know that Tuscany is geographically in the center of Italy, so I think we can switch the slide and pass to the other one. Thank you. And I am briefly presenting you what kind of cultural heritage ecosystem and what type of region we have, also considering the vector perspective. We can identify some assets of our region. I think it's well known all over the world. We are a region with a mixed urban and rural typology. We have a strong regional cultural identity, a lot of cultural heritage density and a great diversity of heritage assets, both at local, regional and international importance. We can consider that there are some connections among these cultural heritage assets. We can consider also that this connection could be at both a sectoral and sector integrated type. For example, we can have some connection with the tourism sector and also with the creative industries too. Tourism is something really important and strategic for Tuscany region. So a lot of people come here to see our cultural heritage, and we have both in parallel creative industries that can accompany and pushing the cultural heritage ecosystem in a strong way. This is also one of the reasons that we decided to have our workshop targeted to the digital skills. In a region like this, and also considering something that I will tell you in the other slide, which is the multi-level governance that we have, considering that perspective. Governance is really important. So since years, for Tuscany, was really important and strategic to build and to preserve the involvement of territorial, cultural and creative industries stakeholders, because it's something that we can count on to design and improve our regional policies in general, and more specifically on cultural heritage ecosystem. So it's also important to understand that the main objective that are related to cultural and cultural heritage field of application was something that we, together with this stakeholder, decided to concentrate on key technologies, also on what we discover on the entrepreneurial processes that we have undergoing within our region. It's important to mention also that we have culture and cultural heritage among the 8 fields of application of our smart specialization strategy. And in particular, we have 3 strategic missions. One is facilitating the access to cultural heritage as a tool of knowledge and socio-economic inclusion, which is quite important for us. The second is to facilitate the preservation of cultural, artistic and architectural heritage. And the third one is to facilitate free cultural and creative expression. We can go to the next slide where we try to give you some key points on our vocational education and training system. I mentioned before that it's important to consider, and it is of course strategical, our multi-level governance, considering also the national level. In Italy, vocational education and training is a competence belonging to the regions and the autonomous provinces that we have, and this is established by our constitution. But we have to decide these policies in some framework, because sometimes they can be connected to other competencies that instead belongs to the state. Cultural heritage is one of these competences. So just to give you an example of this kind of multi-level governance perspective, on the basis we have some of our provision in terms of VET pathways. I wrote here one figure, one professional figure, which is the Cultural Heritage Restoration Technicians, which is a VET figure, which can be a sort of collaborator of the restorer, and this is something that we share together with the state by region and state agreement in 2012. This is a pathway which lasts 3 years. It's quite important. During our workshop, we provided for a study visit to make our group be aware of what this kind of pathway was in terms of practical also activities. I mentioned also the digital importance of these activities. So a long time ago, we decided to start up with an observatory on data on the cultural heritage. I have to mention also that because of the skill governance processes, data are really important. If we want to provide for a more resilient and easily adapting VET offer, we have to be aware of what is moving, and so information is really important, and we have to transmit it. This is something that we have, but we would like to enhance this data provision and its transmission to better adapt VET offer. So we have to improve this kind of observatory. What are the challenges of this kind of VET ecosystem? We think that it's important to not only the twin transition, because it is something that it is strategic in this programming period, but we have some intangible heritage skills that are at risk at disappearing, but they are really, really strategic because they are part of our, for example, craft system. So we are thinking to experiment some new methodologies, something we have shown also during the Florence workshop. For example, Bottega Scuola, or something new which is considering, for example, some craft companies, sort of living cultural heritage actor from this point of view. So work-based learning is something really important for us. In this perspective, and I am closing my part of presentation, We think that something new could come with this 2024 year that is coming, and it's after tomorrow, we can say that. We have the individual learning accounts recommendation from the Council, which is established in 2022. I think it's quite important to mention this because the individual learning account is not only a way to finance training, it's a sort of way to guarantee the right of people to lifelong learning. So we can also be sure that this kind of tool could be part of our offer in terms of financial aid to the cultural heritage, and we are establishing and studying together with the Ministry of Labour at national level, but also with the European Commission, a sort of study to how to implement the recommendation, starting by the craft sector, so starting with the cultural heritage ecosystem.
Thank you, Miriana, for your presentation and joining us online. So from now, I will take you from the Mediterranean back up north to Sweden, to the Västra Götaland region, and I give the floor to Marie Odenbring Widmark from the region, the Cultural Department. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Yes, now we are up north and you see the region of Västra Götaland. It's rather a big region with in Sweden and it contains Gothenburg, who is the second largest city. And it has a wide range of stakeholders within it and a quite complex picture regarding cultural heritage. And as you can see in the box are all ticked, we have this multi-level system, both national, regional and local levels are present in our region. Then I try to press this. No, a little bit harder. So the cultural heritage is managed within a multi-level system where the three levels are present within the region. All functions of the charter model are represented. All stakeholders' roles are present. And what we could discover is that the region has a long-standing tradition of participatory governance in which the region brings an overview and can create impact and has competences that do not exist at local level. We could see that the multi-level paradox is shown when you look at the cultural heritage system. Sweden is both centralized and decentralized. There are general and uniform legislation for planning and heritage on the national level, but the planning and execution is decentralized. The Nordic countries have a high local autonomy index, and many challenges in the cultural heritage work are connected to this paradox. The national legislation is ambitious, but at local level it can be hard to execute, depending on shortcomings in resources, competences, skills, and conflicting objectives. Some municipalities have their own heritage expertise, but a majority does not. And that makes the scene very special. If you look at what we tried to mirror in our workshop, we had it this last June. We can say that historic preservation and building conservation is an area of strength in Västra Götaland. Therefore we chose to mirror that in our workshop. And we tried to look at conservation and preservation and use of the built environment in our workshop. Tried to invite different stakeholders with different roles in this. We have good and continuous cooperation with the wide range of different stakeholders in the regional ecosystem. And that is crucial in a vast region like Västra Götaland. And it's a precondition to ensure skills supply is connected to skills needs and skills gaps. We have important collaborations with different networks, example with our municipalities and museums, and in research and with private owners. We have this special center that is called Slöjd and Byggnadsvård at Näs, who I think we will talk a bit more about later. There we can reach house owners, for example. And there is also the craft laboratory in Mariestad, where the university and the region meets in different work together. Then we have something that we are very proud of. We have this cross-disciplinary educational program. University of Gothenburg offers it for built heritage experts. And we tried during this workshop we had to establish the word antikvaria to be an international word, not just a Swedish one. The region is a strong ecosystem orchestrator, but there are some challenges, of course, to reach outside the sector, or the silo is one of them. And I think we just have to keep investing in collaboration, both in existing networks and try to reach outside the sector, like to the tourism sector and building sector, for example. There is also a challenge to embed the integrated way of cultural heritage thinking and practicing in both the regional development strategy and in the strategies of other regional departments. Västra Götaland is well supplied with all levels of education. We have universities and we have folk high schools, that is special in Sweden, I think. And we have educational and training schools, and we also have lots of short courses that is engage people who own houses, for example. Lifelong learning, both formal and non-formal, connecting to cultural heritage is given within these different networks that we have. It's not in a formal meaning, but a swift way to respond to urgent needs, we think. Our labor market, one can say, is both traditional and forward-looking. We have all the kinds of cultural heritage occupations that you see in other countries and in the rest of Sweden. But we can also see new occupational profiles are emerging, like cultural heritage developer or cultural heritage strategist, that are needed in different new situations. And here the Swedish model with fewer regulations on the labor market is appropriate to meet new needs and demands. We can also see a broadening private sector, and that broadens the labor market in a good way, but it makes it also more complex and difficult to overview. We can see big differences in the region between countryside and urban and rural areas. Here the thing I lifted before, cross-disciplinary educational programs like Built Heritage Experts, Bebyggelseantikvarien, is an interesting occupation. And they can work in municipalities or in museums, and perhaps, as Astrid called them, as a Trojan horse, if that is a correct word in English. The challenge in the work with lifelong learning is that it's not systematic. skills gaps and needs assessment is done by several partners in a non-systemic and non-integrated way. An overview of the needs of the sector in the region is highly fragmented. A need to shift from reactive programming of training and education to proactively innovating of the ENT offer. We can identify needs both connected to climate change, conflict, needs of reuse and circular economy, policies for designed living environments, property and facility management, finance and economy, but also transversal skills, good communication skills, smart methods of dialogue and involvement, and pedagogical skills. Thank you. You see our challenges down there.
Very well done to all the regions. So now you got the flavor of what regions is about. And of course, it's not a new thing that we discovered, but the diversity is enormous. And it really starts with what do we mean by cultural heritage? We have regions where they use two categories to describe heritage. We have other regions where we have 19. We talk about tangible, intangible, immaterial, movable, immovable. So this is really the super diversity of the sector, which also makes it very interesting to look to what is the way forward. And I will now try to bridge you from these 6 regions to the panel discussion where we invited 3 other regions to reflect with us. So I will try to really squeeze into a couple of slides from findings over the learnings to suggestions for the regional rollout of the Charter Alliance. So what have we learned after 2 years of intense work? So first, as I already mentioned, the super diversity in cultural heritage ecosystems, it is a complex interplay between different elements. It goes on political competences, decision-making power, it's a typology of the heritage, it's the territorial features. It's about how is policy approaching heritage, but also what is the tradition in governance, and obviously the nature and the level of sectoral and cross-sector integrated dynamics are very different. So when we think about Charter, we are convinced with the regions that the super diversity should be taken as a strength, but reflecting this to the strategy that we will build for Europe, it means that the strategy must be comprehensive, addressing upskilling needs and heritage practitioners, but also in the wider scope of targeting mediators, volunteers, heritage literacy for policymakers and civil society. The strategy must also be robust. It has to offer solid building blocks to the regions to address challenges that all regions have in common, the crafts, climate change, the green transition, and so on, and for which the colleagues of the project have already been working quite hard to propose 8 families of emerging curricula to address this. Last but not least, this strategy must also be flexible because every region is different and they have to be able to take what they can use but tailor it to the needs of each region and the specificities of their ecosystem. When we think about what level of education is really the one where Charter needs to invest in, all the regions, in all the stakeholder workshops, the stakeholders pointed out that it's really continuous professional development. It's the most important one. And as Marie already mentioned, it's difficult because it's not systemized, which means it's difficult to disclose, it's difficult to access. And upskilling, as you also heard from many of the Irish stakeholders this morning, it's not, most of the upskilling is not done in a course, it's done on the job, in a workplace. It's done by consulting colleagues on how to address a specific problem. Bringing this to suggestions. Strengthening lifelong learning is very important and really unlock the potential of the many non-formal and informal upskilling opportunities outside the traditional systems. There are some instruments that are interesting. We have the micro-credentials, we have, as Miriana already mentioned, the individual learning accounts that really can be game changers for the sector if we use them wise. Furthermore, we also really launch a call to all the Irish stakeholders in the room to also disclose the offer that you already have. The colleagues in the project, they have made a database of cultural heritage education programs in Europe. And the idea behind this is that we share what is already there so that other experts and stakeholders can use this offer. When we jump to the next learning, and we have talked this morning a lot also with the Irish stakeholders about the craft and the craft-related competences, which are at risk of disappearance in every of the regions that we have studied. Yet they are crucial to preserve for important heritage in the regions. So translating this into suggestions, what Charter and the Charter strategy should try to achieve is try to include robust building blocks also here to maintain and to revalue crafts-related skills, allowing all regions to implement them. So what do we talk about? We talk about protecting the non-formal and the informal learning paths that are still used in many regions to pass on the skills from one generation to the other. We talk about the certifications that we need for those craft persons, as Ciprian explained, to allow them to be recognized, to access public contracts, but also to allow them to benefit and use the professional mobility schemes that that make them actually work all over Europe and share their knowledge, because they're needed, and some of the regions already lost some of these crafts forever. We have to look into a tailored legislative framework for craft persons, and also the materials and the crafts need to be made eligible in the European funding programs, where we identified some of the specific hindering elements. So this is really something that is crucial. And last but not least, also the strategy. It's not only looking forward to what are the current and the future challenges in the sector, but it's also about maintaining what we have and what we are about to lose. When we jump to the next finding, and we have heard many similar challenges this morning in the different presentations, and also in the session this afternoon with Katie Daly about the big transitions, talking about climate change, the green transition, the blue transition, the digital transition, and also some other complex transitions. The regions are struggling, and we actually found a double dilemma. And what is this dilemma? It's that we've spoken to stakeholders in the sector, and they said, well, we are looking at education and training providers, and we expect them to come up with training programs so that we know how to address the impacts of these challenges. Yet on the other side, the representatives of these universities, they told us, yes, it's not that we don't want it, but if we want to change programs, it takes a long time. There are long procedures before you can actually come up with a new master program. So we actually expect the employers or the private companies to come up with short courses, where then the private companies, they actually shared with us, well, it's not that we don't want to do it, but we don't have the state-of-the-art infrastructure, and we don't have the state-of-the-art knowledge. And then adding on top of that, on the labor market, those profiles who are knowledgeable about heritage and about the complex transitions, they are very wanted. They're wanted by universities and training providers to develop courses, to do research, but they are also very wanted by the sector to actually do the job. So on the labor market, the two groups are really each other competitors, and this is a challenge. So what we've seen in all the regions, and also this morning with the presentation on the virtual treasury, is that for these complex challenges, the upskilling is actually done in a new way. knowledge creation and knowledge sharing is done outside traditional courses. It's when researchers and professionals work together on a project. It's when they discuss together and see how they can address climate change. How do you do climate adaptation plan? How do you work on digitalizing your assets? And we've seen it in Évora, we've seen it in Tuscany, we've seen it in every region, that these new ways of working together is really the way forward at a moment where we are under pressure. Besides those skills that are very much needed, and it was already also mentioned by some of the colleagues, we need transformational skills, soft skills that really should equip the stakeholders further. Bringing this into a suggestion for what Charter should look into, we actually recommend the regions, first of all, to invest in multidisciplinary collaboration at regional level, at interregional level, to address the impact of these transitions. We think that for these three transitions, every education and training program, initial training program, needs to be permeated by a transversal learning path so that the future professionals know what they can expect, how they can address, and how they can work with it. Furthermore, very important, and we also saw it in the Tuscany region, it's critical that cultural heritage stakeholders, they build a strong and solid culture of data. It's critical for the digitalization and the documentation of the heritage. It's critical to support heritage jobs. It's critical for better or wider engagement and use with the wider society. And it's also very necessary for creating more quality data on the skills needs and on the employment situation of sectors to really start working in a more proactive way. Last but not least, there are so many European very valuable initiatives taken that also offer upskilling opportunities for heritage professionals. So we encourage the regions to support their stakeholders to use these opportunities that are in place. When it comes to skills governance, we actually have seen, and of course here there's a difference between the regions who actually have a political competences in education and training and those who don't, is that it's a very challenging policy field because it's at the intersection of education and training, cultural heritage, and employment. On top of, let's say, the horizontal intersection, it's also a vertical one, because as you have seen in the little tables on every slide, we are talking about multi-level governance in every region in a different way. So the regions struggle to set up efficient and effective skills ecosystems, and skills governance is crucial. And this needs to be strengthened. We've seen it in some of the slides, there is a lack of a systemic approach to really grasp what the skills needs are, what the gaps are, how do you develop a strategy on the long term, and how do you do this from an ecosystem perspective, which is even an extra layer of complexity. Translating this into suggestions, Charter urges the regions to strengthen their skills governance at regional level. And what is needed for that? It is a whole of governance approach. You cannot only make a strategy that is fit for purpose if you stay within your own policy field. This is what we learned in the regional workshops. You have to talk and understand and make sure that what you're proposing, it's fit for purpose. And this goes hand in hand with policy alignment. We have seen national great strategies to preserve crafts, but they did not address regional specificities. So we've seen regions who are actually Alentejo complemented it to make sure that they could actually be very effective in their own territory. So this is really important. There is a really good OECD checklist to do an assessment if you want to start, like all the Irish stakeholders, if you want to start working on this. It's a simple survey, it's a yes-no questions, but it gives you a very good idea on how to start this debate. And last but not least, as it was mentioned by Marie, it's also about thinking ahead. We have to think about the future. How can we anticipate skills that we will need? And obviously, some of them we don't know yet. So it's about building resilient skills ecosystems and skills governance systems to address that. And this actually leads me to the last general observation, talking about cultural heritage ecosystems at regional level in general. It was mentioned before. We've seen in most, not all, but in most of the regions, a lack of political prioritization for heritage in general, but for skills for cultural heritage in particular. And we have seen in all the regions a great willingness to collaborate, but collaboration remains fragmented. Most of it is project-based, too siloed, not systemic, and not embedded in policy frameworks or long-term strategies. And this is really needed to actually get a deep mutual understanding of what skills we need to foster. Talking about the sector integrated dynamics, also there we have seen good examples, but overall also fragmentation, and even in some regions unbalanced or incomplete ecosystems where you see that some parts of the ecosystem work very well, but some others are completely blank. That being said, I think it has been a really interesting research where we have seen that regions, even if they don't have political competences in the field of education and training, when they use regional development strategies and policy wise, they have instruments, they have funding to work on skills for heritage, to make the dynamics in the ecosystems race. So they have proven, the regions, but also some of the big museums like Astra and the German Maritime Museum, that if you have this vision and you use the regional policy instruments wise, you can actually move forward and progress and address the needs that you have. And this brings me to the final slide of suggestions. And it basically comes down that we have seen 4 critical preconditions for flourishing cultural heritage ecosystems. So what are these preconditions? First of all, it's a policy-embedded approach. You embed heritage in policy. And you take a two-folded integrated approach, by which I mean you consider all subsectors of heritage, not only the tangible, also the intangible. So you cover the entire sector. And at the same time, you break the silos of other policy fields. You make sure that heritage is relevant in urban development, in regional development, in tourism, and so on. The third precondition is that we've seen in regions with a strong participatory governance, where they actually engage the stakeholders and they take a bottom-up approach, it's feasible and realistic to work together and to improve some of the bottlenecks. And last but not least, we have seen that regions who are well connected with other regions, neighboring regions, or other regions in Europe, they actually manage to unlock European funding and opportunities that you can use for upskilling purposes in your own region. Even in a situation where maybe some of the regional budgets are under pressure, being well connected is very critical for your ecosystem. And this last reflection leads me, and this will be also one of the opening questions or closing questions for the debate, is that if we want to strengthen the regional ecosystems in Europe, that we actually launch a warm call to set up regional or interregional skills partnership. We have seen ecosystems where there is no initial training, not in VET, not at the university, but there is a university. The labor market is too small to solve this problem, but by joining forces interregionally, they can overcome some of the issues. So establishing these regional partnerships for skills for cultural heritage is a way forward. I just want to share with the Irish stakeholders that actually there is a very good handbook that can guide you through this process. How do you do this step by step? And there is in-kind support offered by the Pact for Skills support offices if you want to do it. If you want to work on this in Ireland and if you want to continue after this conference, there are practical ways to support and to get this work started up. So I hope that you got this good overview of what we have done a bit. In January, you will have all the documents available where you can also find the specific regional examples. I would like to thank everybody who was involved, the regions in particular, the Charter Consortium partners for all the work that we've done together. And I think that we have a good basis to close the day with some final reflections in the panel debate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Astrid. Plenty of food for thought there. I would like to now invite all of the speakers and our three guests, Clara, Federica and Colin, to join us up here. We're going to need 2 or possibly 3 more chairs. So if okay, so okay, that's okay. Okay, so we've just been told that we can't add any more chairs to the stage, but that's okay, and I'm sure that people will project their voices. I'm going to go slightly off script here. Myself and Astrid and Gunnar had a number of Zoom conversations before this to map out this session and to see what sorts of questions we might lead with and get some responses. But of course, those things always evolve and change as the day and the session and the contributions themselves change. So I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to our three guests, to Clara from the Aragon region. We've heard you speaking earlier on with what you described as an unusual question. It's not unusual in these quarters. To Federica, good afternoon, Federica, from Emilia-Romagna, and to Colin, whom some of us have heard from already in the previous session, and of course to our speakers. I don't know whether Miriana is still listening into us or not. I'm aware of the fact, and I just looked up a few moments ago and realized there are 2 huge digital clocks that are there ticking away, which tells us that we have to be aware of the fact that Miguel Fernandez-Diaz from the European Commission, whom I think is possibly listening in now, has very kindly offered to say a few closing words at 5:30 at 17:30 on the button, so we'll try and get there. But anyway, while we have the 6 regions here, I thought a question that I'd like to put to you, but looking for very quick responses, and they can just be body language responses, if you like. Have you learned or profited from the exercise that you've been through? Because I know that you've all gathered an enormous amount of literature, over 1,200 pages, to be precise. Have you been able to leverage the experience in your own region for political ends, for resources and so on? And I suppose finally, and this is 3 questions rolled into one, did the methodology work for you? Is this a methodology that can be rolled out profitably and to the benefit of other regions? I'd throw it open to any of you who'd like to respond. So the first is, does this experience work for you? Nod if it was positive, okay? Did meeting the other regions work for you? Was that positive? Have you established relationships with each other now and sharing knowledge?
Yes.
Yes.
I think it was very positive.
Fantastic. This is exactly what we want. Okay, so did the methodology, the type of data that you had to gather, did that prove to be of benefit to you? Did you learn from the experience?
Yes, I think we learned a lot with the experience, not only us, but the ecosystem, the stakeholders.
I'm not sure whether that microphone is on. Can people hear what Alexandra is saying?
Okay. I think we learned as we are here, but all the stakeholders that were involved in our workshops were very important for them, even to improve the way we are working together at regional level. Okay. And the interregional contacts that we have, the support and the contact and the sharing ideas with other regions, it was also very important for us.
Good. Well, I think we're very glad to hear that, and also relieved, because when you test a methodology, you're testing something that hasn't been tested before. But if your experience
model,
is that linking together,
the charter model,
yeah,
with the different dimensions, was very important to organize the workshop and to organize the reflection that we have done. Oh, okay.
Okay. The next question then is directed to our three guests. I think we can assume that all of the issues that you've heard about, not just during this session, but during the day, are resonating with you. Is there anything that you want to bring to the table that hasn't been considered so far? The types of problems and solutions that have been expressed by the 6 regions, do they capture everything that is of concern to you, or are there other aspects of managing the heritage and the heritage resource in your region that you'd like to share with us, to bring to the table?
I speak?
Yeah. Yes. Be sure to speak into the microphone. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm Federica Diamanti from Emilia-Romagna region, Italy. And what I would like to emphasize is that you were asking the beginning, is the cultural heritage sector an economic force? And I would like to say yes. Of course, there are many phases of these cultural heritage professions. So, for instance, I work in the European projects on tourism and culture in Emilia-Romagna region, and we work a lot with experiential tourism. Everyone has a little bit said something about tourism, but the experiential tourism, which is on its way already from 10 years now, but it is growing and growing, gives the possibility to persons living both in cities or important touristic areas, but also in inner areas, in internal areas, to remote areas, let's say. And there is the possibility for these people to get trained to a job which they are supposed to know because they live in these remote areas mainly. And it is a way also to bring education to the remote areas, because usually education is mainly located in cities. There are maybe some courses that are developed a little bit outside the towns, but to go into remote area, it's more difficult. Okay. And there are also some experiences in Italy about even university classes moved from the big towns to remote areas. Small classes, but people that got to the end of their path, they got the graduation, they decided to stay in the remote areas. So okay. It's something that can be a challenge to face also. Mm-hmm. May I add another thing?
One, yes.
Just one? Yeah. Because we in Emilia-Romagna region, we have a system of qualification, professional qualification, and many different types of works, crafts works, because this is vocational level, which means 3 years of education from 14 to 17 years old. And Emilia-Romagna region has a regional system of qualification, and it is possible to update this regional system. As the private sector goes faster than the institutional education, it is possible to update this qualifications system. Mm-hmm. And But we've got a problem because when we have, for instance, tourist guides, natural guides for national regional parks, they are certified, but there are people that are not certified that goes into the park or into the towns and go there and do their work without being certified. Yeah. So there's also a sort of
like
preservation of the job
yes.
for those who got the certification.
Okay. Clara, did you want to?
Yeah, thank you. Well, first of all, thanks for inviting Aragon to this roundtable. I'm very happy or unhappy, I don't know, to agree with most of the problems everyone spoke about today, even from the northern countries in Europe, because sometimes seems to be a gap between the northern countries and the southern countries. The challenge Federica was talking about was something I wanted also to deal with. But I think, I have the feeling that usually in this sort of meetings, we tend to focus on, we say, let's have an interdisciplinary perspective approach. But we keep it in a cultural heritage hub. Why don't we open it a little bit more so we are heard more? Let's find a second round stakeholders. Let's bring the environmental authorities to our debates. Let's bring the economy ministry to the debates. No, let's broaden the perspective to all these anthropological and sociological aspects of heritage that are not heritage directly, but learning on how the human beings are evolving, that are going to be the next generations and the targets of these education programs, and knowing how they think, how they will work, how they will behave in this new world, very, very fast changing new world. That's very important to be very concise in our recommendations and to make these charter recommendations or the project in general conclusions, not making it, so it doesn't remain a dead letter. It really needs to be practical. I find this Charter Alliance project so inspiring. It's something very needed and very difficult, so congratulations. But it really needs to be, for the project to be useful, the target needs to be very well known. Okay. Thank you.
Colin, can I direct a question to you for a moment, just to follow on what Clara's been saying there concerning the traction that heritage has outside the world of heritage itself. I think everybody around the room will agree with you that heritage, the philosophy of heritage, the sentiment of heritage, the approach of heritage, especially in the context of climate change, biodiversity loss, migration, all of those different societal issues, that we need to bring that philosophy to a wider audience. Are we getting traction, in your experience, outside of the heritage bubble, if we'll call it that?
I think it's very mixed, to be honest. I think my experience is that some people immediately see the relevance of heritage to that wider agenda, but I think it's still a struggle. I think trying to explain to people, and actually it was a private sector guy who said this to me once, we've done a lot around in Scotland about promoting the historic environment as being vital for the tourism industry. And he said, people come to Scotland because they want it to look like Scotland. We need to invest in that because that's what people want to experience when they come. But I find even that is sometimes quite difficult to get across to decision makers. That the links to us are all obvious. That if you're coming to Edinburgh, people want it to look like a World Heritage Site, and that requires trained stonemasons to maintain those stone buildings. But Edinburgh College have just dropped stonemasonry.
There you go.
you know, as a training programme.
Yeah.
I had a meeting with the skills minister last week. He was very sympathetic. He said, of course, I realise the importance of stone masonry, but I need to train 4,500 air source heat pump engineers a year from now on. So your numbers are small beer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's trying to demonstrate that, yes, they might be small beer, but the impact of them is massive. Mm-hmm. And I think that's... Yeah, I made a note there about heritage literacy. I think, yes, there's a need for us to promote that heritage literacy with allies across society, but also the heritage sector needs to get up to speed with its literacy around social and environmental and other agendas, so that it can speak other people's language as much as they speak ours.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Does anyone want to come in on that, or will I move on? Because I think one of the things that's come out from all of the workshops is the importance, but the kind of, if you like, the chaos around lifelong learning, informal training. It's some places it's offered and it has the appearance of being systematic. In other places it's not systematic at all, and the general problem has to do with the certification of the qualifications themselves for very short learning experiences that are absolutely what are needed in, for example, crafts and so on. So in what way, and again I'm speaking to the three guests because we've had some insight as to how that's operating in the regions. To the three guests, we start with Clara. Is there any kind of resonance there? Do you have a systematic way of delivering lifelong learning in Aragon? Do you have a way of certifying the qualifications or the learning experience?
Well, the case in Aragon is not as different as the one we can find maybe in the Basque country. In the end, we are two Spanish regions, but the competencies in Spain are different. Are most of them run by the regions themselves. So I found myself some differences when Ainhoa was talking. Also relating to topics I've heard today, I'm an architect, and in Spain this is a problem that happens in the whole country. The same as Alexandra said in Alentejo, we have many things in common. I see Alexandra. The problem is architects get the certification. I'm a licensed architect and I took a lot of heritage-based courses during my studies, but this is not compulsory, it's optional. So in the end, at least in Spain, architects have their legal, which is very important, responsibility when there's there's an intervention on cultural heritage, a physical intervention. So what happens here? We talk about interdisciplinarity, and maybe the person who is signing, who is designing, and who is deciding might not have any background related to cultural heritage. In Spain, on top of that, we have a special certification, which also happens in Italy, as I spoke with Federica and a colleague from there, Antonio. It's the conservator-restorator figure. This doesn't exist here in Ireland, and we have a certified school in Aragon. And this is university studies, and these people are specialized in physical restoration of works. It's not the craftsmanship itself. It's like the construction worker with a fine arts kind of background. So maybe this figure could also be helpful to spread the word all over Europe. But the architect's topic, I think, it really needs to be addressed.
Okay. The prospect of individual learning accounts. You say in the Tuscany region in Emilia-Romagna that you have a system for certification of qualifications for heritage professionals. Does this include also lifelong learning, short courses, informal learning? Are you able to cope with that, or is it more institutional qualifications?
in the Italian educational system, so this is valid for everywhere in Italy, the vocational training centers are managed by regions. So this level of education, as I said before, is from 14 to 17 years old. But there is also technical and professional institutes, technical and professional institutes that can certify with the high school diploma and in some types of cultural heritage profession, of course. But after this, there is also a post-high school diploma, short, 1 year, and another 2 years. And then there is the university that delivers...
so these are institutional learning
yes.
certification.
But there are also BSOs, business support organization, organizing cultural heritage classes.
Yes, classes.
Enterprises, chambers of commerce, and we as Emilia-Romagna region, we have just issued a regional law on attraction of talented people. And so we, I would say, have the problem of having too many actors working in the sector.
Okay.
And sorry.
To throw the same question to Ciprian, if I might, for a moment, because you were very animated about lifelong learning, which seems to be so vital to the crafts. The prospect of individual learning profiles that has a certification that is at a European level. Is this going to solve the issue for you, do you think?
I hope.
Okay.
I hope. Yes, we talk about professionals in culture. We are professionals, authorities are authorities, but I think we have to talk also about the communities, you know, because the craftsmen are a part of the community. The heritage is a part of the community. So then, when they will assume the heritage, will be more simple. To have this, to have certifications approved by EU level for all the countries, also from central part of Europe, southeast part of Europe, that would be very, very important. Because in this way, the rural areas will have a future.
Yes, yes, yes. That's a really important point, I think. I'm aware the time is moving on, but I have a question for you all coming from that. I think the focus very much this afternoon, and also in your presentation, Colin, as well, has been on practical skills relating to conservation restoration, in particular crafts as well, preserving crafts. While you were talking, in fact, you might have noticed me on my phone, because I wanted to know whether there was a red list for endangered crafts.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, well, there is one on the internet as well. So don't do it now, folks, but maybe on your way home, look up Red List for Endangered Crafts. It makes for depressing reading, to be honest, but I think it's produced by an organisation in the UK. I can see you nodding, Colin.
Yeah, Heritage Crafts Alliance.
That's right, okay. It is an interesting one, but what, as an educator myself, I'm interested in also the if you like, the theoretical side of things, and if you like, also the intangible dimension of heritage practice, and the range of demands now being placed on heritage practitioners, on the sector, and on the resource. All of life's problems that we have stepped up to the plate and said we can answer them. Is that penetrating through to your fellow professionals? Is everyone on the same page? Does everyone feel the same way as, for example, Astrid does here, that there are, components that have to be in place for the heritage ecosystem to deliver its promise? Or is this something that you're still struggling with across your sector? So if we can start with our colleagues maybe from Sweden, who are seem to be very well placed in
they are the best example
in terms of this.
for this.
Yeah.
So what did you want to know?
Yeah. What I want to know is whether the new way of thinking about heritage, the demands that are being placed on heritage is going to be present in the context of, for example, societal well-being, economic recovery, political maturity.
Yes.
You know.
And designed living environment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So is that message penetrating right through the sector in your regions or countries?
I think the sector, the cultural heritage sector, wants to be in these areas, but I think we still have a long way to go to really be there. To really, for example, we work with placemaking, and cultural heritage should really be one of the drivers in placemaking. But I still think it is there, but it's not recognized as cultural heritage. And also in the politics connected to design living environment, also cultural heritage is lifted as one of the really main things, but nevertheless it's always talked about as just architecture, and also very much perspectives about art and new houses, and the recognition of cultural heritage as really the fundamental thing in all living environments is not really recognized, I think.
Okay.
So I think we have a long way to go yet.
We have a long way to go. I'm talking about within your sector. When you talk to fellow professionals in the heritage sector, is that is everyone marching to the same tune?
If my colleagues recognize cultural heritage and really wants to work with transformation, and yes, perhaps we're better off there.
Okay.
Yes.
And is this the experience in the Basque country as well?
Okay, I'm coming from the. Can you hear me? Yeah?
Yes.
I'm coming from the museums background, and I think that in the last few years we are more aware of the importance of culture and cultural heritage in sustainability and social well-being. We are working in different programs for in accessibility in museums, and when I say accessibility, I don't mean just physical accessibility, but for all the society. So I think we are getting there, and stakeholders, not just in museums, are getting aware of the importance of those skills, and I think that we need to improve in learnings and in developing programs in that area.
Yeah, which is a good place to start to wrap up, is that training and education in heritage has got to now include those arenas of engagement. So the traditional training in our sector is no longer all that's needed.
I think
a lot of
important.
it's still needed. We still have to act on the imperative of looking after, safeguarding and passing on the heritage to future generations, and the technical skills that are involved in that, but a whole other range of things have been added into the equation now. So is this being addressed at training in your countries? I'm not going to direct that to any one particular person, but if anyone would like to say, yes, I think this is operating quite healthily.
In my opinion, I think to continue with traditional education, it's really important to have this basic background in history and heritage, but we need to add some transversal skills in there, as digitization, accessibility, sustainability.
And for the present generation then, transversal skills are best imparted through lifelong learning courses. For all of us here who qualified a number of years ago, some more than others.
Yeah, I think that has to be there for everyone.
Yeah.
There has to be that opportunity to continue to develop your skills and knowledge and expertise across your career.
Yeah.
I think it's difficult sometimes for the sector to realise the world has changed. And I think then it's also difficult to try, we've all talked about the delay there can be in developing new ways of training and new qualifications. And, the world is changing so quickly that it's quite, by the time you've done one set of standards and actually taking that through to delivering the qualification, you need to go back and almost immediately change the standards to catch up. So I think we have to be more agile and more dynamic about what we're doing and how we're doing it.
I think that's a very good point. Yes.
I just would like to add that also the owners of the skills need to be educated again, not on their skills, but what their skills are inside, the impact on the environment, how to teach, because they usually teach by doing. It's a learning by doing, and they don't really know how to teach to young people or to others who are interested. So a lifelong learning is for them too, not only for the very young or the middle-aged. Also, those are supposed to be at the end of their working life. Because, as I was talking about the experiential tourism, there are many enterprises asking for people being able to show what they are able to do to tourists. So they need to be educated as well.
Okay, well, that is a very good note to end on. I'm sorry we didn't hear from you, Claudia, at all. But in particular, I want to thank you for stepping into the breach at the last minute. I was sitting here and I could see the screen that Claudia was trying to read on. It was the size of a postage stamp. I don't know how you managed to do it, but I want to thank you for that, and to thank our panelists, but ask you to stay exactly where you are, because it's pretty...
Can I just add one?
Oh yeah, sure, of course, yeah, you have a moment, yeah.
Just a small feedback from Bremerhaven and Bremen. I think the whole outcomes of this discussions and everything could, for us at least, be something like a wake-up call and to address our politicians. And now we have kind of a proof to prove them. And look here, we have it like black and white written down. You have to do this and this and this if you want to, bring the issue of cultural heritage promotion on your political agenda, and do something with it. And now they have we can provide them with a plan, or at least something. And this is nice because we didn't have that before. We had just random things going on, but nothing, well, kind of bound together. And now we have a system, or at least a start of a system, which is good.
We're really glad to hear that. That's a very positive accommodation to end on. I'm going to ask you all to stay exactly where you are so we don't disturb our guest speaker from the European Commission from Brussels. I think that's where you are. Miguel Fernandez Diaz, if you're present, we are going to open the floor to you now. Thank you very much for your patience in waiting for this. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me. I hope you can hear me well.
Yes.
I could attend the whole afternoon session today, and it was really interesting to hear from the different regions all their experiences, their differences, but also their common challenges. It was also good to learn from the findings of the project so far, as in Astrid's intervention, and also the discussions, their views on this. From my side, well, let me first introduce me, Miguel Fernandez from the European Commission. I'm part of the Pact for Skills team in DG Employment. The Pact for Skills is this initiative of the European Commission aimed at mobilizing stakeholders to take action for up and reskilling. And I think it would be interesting for me to share with you that I see many of the takeaways of this session this afternoon, points of connection, links with the Pact for Skills initiative and what value it can bring to stakeholders like you. They're in the room and you're back in your capitals and in your territories when it comes to joining forces for up and reskilling, to develop skills in a strategic way. Because one of the first things that I noted is this call for the need for long-term strategies, I think was from the Alentejo, that we don't need to go on only with short-term projects, etc., but rather to build something that lasts for longer, because when it comes to skilling, it is a very time-consuming task for all of us. It is building a lot on training content, on institutions that can provide those training, on the stakeholders engagement, etc. And this is usually taking a lot of time to build. Therefore, we need this kind of long-term strategies. Well, the Pact is there as an open-ended initiative. It is not linked to any funding instrument and therefore has not a deadline, if you want, but rather is there for stakeholders to use with that long-term perspective. So it can be helpful in that sense. It can also be useful in the other element that I could identify, that is the need to mobilize all relevant stakeholders around the table. It has been mentioned that, well, just now, that it's not only about the traditional education and training, that some other forms, maybe some other formats with some other stakeholders need to be brought into this strategy. I also heard about the importance of engaging different stakeholders such as cultural institutions or education and training providers, companies themselves, of course, public authorities at the multi-level complex distribution of competences that apply in many regions. The Pact for Skills is, again, a model, a platform that can be used to articulate that cooperation of different types of stakeholders around concrete specific targets for up and reskilling of the working age population. With a sectoral focus, if that is the case, as I understand, it could be of interest for many of the participants today, or with a broader approach, if that is the case also, and want to involve others. But as said, the Pact is this very flexible model of cooperation of stakeholders, of mobilization of stakeholders to take action, to cooperate and to work together. Not only public, but also very importantly, private stakeholders, private companies, education and training providers, chambers of commerce and others are already participating in the initiatives of the Pact for Skills. And what we are doing with them is to work with the stakeholders, promoting that they establish skills partnerships. It has been mentioned by Astrid very clearly as one of the recommendations, and I cannot agree more that this can be something useful to bring to life and to bring to practice the findings, the results of the Charter project, and also to provide this lasting platform for cooperation that goes into the longer term and that helps the stakeholders to work together. This can also be useful in other element that has been mentioned, and is to keep stakeholders engaged and to have this participatory governance model. Because partnership is at the core of the Pact for Skills initiative, and at the same time it provides, as I said, a model that can be that others can adapt and to their needs about these stakeholders' engagement. And it has, as it has been said, the Commission, the European Commission, is promoting the establishment of these partnerships, particularly at the regional and local level. This can be done in a single territory, but also in a network of territories with common challenges, as we have seen is the case for the regions here that had already participated in the Charter project, and also provide support to this, support in the form of technical assistance in help to set up the partnership, to develop governance structures and models that can integrate different stakeholders, and also providing visibility to the efforts and to the achievements of the partnerships under the pact. And very, very importantly, and that would be my last point, providing a space for mutual learning. It has been said also that cooperation, that how satisfying it has been for many of the people participating in the project to find others with the same problems and fighting to have some solutions to those problems. Well, the pact that we are aiming to create a site and a space for collaboration, for networking, and for mutual learning. In that sense, I think it can be of interest to you to consider that this could be an interesting next step, building a skills partnership or different skills partnerships. This is, as I said, up to you. It's stakeholders-led, focusing on the skills development in the cultural heritage sector. Hope this is of your interest, and really glad to have attended this meeting, even if it is only online and I missed the opportunity to be in Ireland. Thank you.
So thank you for those words, Miguel. And it just remains for me to thank all of our panelists again, to repeat what Astrid said at the start, to thank our 6 regions for all of the work that they put in to this. The project has hoovered up so much information. I think one of the takeaways is the methodology works, Astrid, but that the level of diversity is vast, and therefore it's going to be some time before all of the nuances of information come out. Nobody wants to straitjacket the sector and its actors into small boxes or even big boxes. The diversity is a great strength, but it also creates its own headaches for those people who are trying to devise policy suggestions and so on. But those are now beginning to emerge, and that's a very healthy place for this project to be in. And to extend a particularly warm thanks and welcome again to our 3 guests, and thank you for your contributions today, and no doubt you'll be with us for the next few days, and we'll continue to share your experiences and wisdom and insights and ask questions as well from us. And finally, it just remains for me to thank Astrid in particular, and obviously also Gunnar as well, for the work that you've put into organising this session. It's been complex and I know stressful at times, but at this stage we're all friends, and that makes life so much easier. So thank you all, and I'd ask you to join me in a round of applause for our panelists. Thank you. Yes.
Well, we are at the end of this fantastic day. I think all of us, we are enjoying so much this session. We are learning so much from this regional report. I want to say that from the very beginning, when we presented the application of this project, for us was very clear that the regional dimension was important. And was important, and we designed the project in order to get as much as possible from the reality of the regional ecosystems. Today, we can say that this is a very successful journey. We have been learning a lot, not only here in this session, which probably is a little bit a very synthetic result of a wonderful and very long work, but I think we learn a lot in all these visits. We know that in some cases we have been able to generate internal dynamics. So now the professionals of the sector in each region knows themselves better. We connect people from the education and training and from the different subsectors of the heritage sector, which was important. And in some cases, even though not always we were successful, we were able as well to connect with the people from other sectors, this idea of intersectoriality. So to have people from the touristic sector, people from the employment, people who have different visions, and having all of them together. We know, and Astrid said very well in the beginning, Europe is a world with very heterogeneous regions. We knew that from the very beginning. Here we just are, but in a way, we learn from that. And I think this is a strength, the strength of learning from the diversity of our heritage, the diversity of our governance models, of our heterogeneity, but as well, that is what we have to be able to build something which is useful for everyone and enough specific in order to learn and to be able to apply your own reality. And that's exactly what happens during this session. So for me, it was really very useful. I think we have to congratulate again all our partners from the regions, ERRIN and Astrid as the umbrella organization who has been able to organize, Conor because he was doing this wonderful job of animating this session. But I want to say not only about this session, because well, maybe I will talk a little bit more because it was just here. I think today had been a very useful day. I hope our colleagues from Ireland are learning as well as much as us. I think this morning we learned from the different perspective. We learned stories about the Irish situation, from the Civil War and the consequences, to how today there is a wonderful initiative trying to build a stronger cultural heritage sector in this island. The connection, of course, with Northern Ireland, with the UK, which is very close, but in general, the capacity of talking and dialogue with the rest of Europe. And this is part as well of our goal as a project. As a coordinator of the Charter project, I think we are very, very grateful of all these insights, all these capacities of understanding and learning, and I hope you will bring home as well a lot of learning. So now is the moment of thank really all our partners, the Department of Housing, the Heritage Council of Ireland, but behind these institutions there are people, specific people, and I want to thank them, because without them, this session, this journey, this conference wouldn't be possible. And I please ask Nessa and because I don't see the people, that's the problem. So please come. Danielle as well. I don't know where Danielle is, but please, all the team, come here because you merit the congratulations from our side.
I think we should also get Greta and Terry up here, and Virginia and Trina and Ian from the Heritage Council, who are also involved in the preparation of this day. And while they're coming up, I just want to say to the people who received an email from me about an hour ago about sessions and workshops and sharing, that we will meet at 7:30 after when the reception ends. We'll just have a short meeting. So you know who you are. The work continues. Anyway, thank you. everybody please enjoy the reception, which is starting outside now. And obviously, you're working, you're taking each other's phone numbers and email addresses. Have fun and a little bit of wine as well. Okay, thank you very much for coming.